There's a topic that millions of men over 60 think about in private, but almost never talk about openly. And because it stays hidden, so do the myths, the worries, and the questions that could actually have simple, reassuring answers. What's interesting is that most men believe that after a certain age, certain intimate aspects of their health become less important or even harmful to maintain. But what if the real story is quite different? What if continuing to understand and honor this natural part of yourself could actually support your overall well-being in ways you haven't heard about? I'm not talking about anything extreme or uncomfortable, just honest, respectful information that many doctors don't take the time to explain clearly. Stay with me, because near the end of this video, I'll share something that often surprises men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. A reassuring insight that brings clarity to something you may have wondered about for years. Before we continue, let me ask you something, and I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Whether you're in a quiet room at home, taking a break, or just curious about this topic, I truly read every comment. It means so much to see men from different places feeling comfortable enough to learn together. Go ahead and type your city or country below. I'd love to welcome you personally. Now, let's talk about something that deserves more honest, judgment-free conversation. Sexual health doesn't stop being important just because you've reached a certain age. In fact, understanding what's normal, what's healthy, and what's simply misunderstood can bring a lot of peace of mind, especially when so much of what you hear is either outdated, exaggerated, or just plain wrong. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why one common belief about aging and intimacy is actually backward, what really happens in the body after 60, and why it's not what most men assume, a simple truth about frequency that often gets misunderstood, how this natural aspect of health connects to confidence, sleep, and even prostate wellness, and later on, a surprising insight that many men only learn from a doctor during a health scare. But you don't have to wait for that. Make sure you stay until the end, because the final insight is often the one men say they wish they'd understood decades earlier. This isn't about performance, pressure, or comparing yourself to anyone else. It's about understanding your own body with clarity and kindness. Here's something doctors rarely address in everyday appointments. Most men over 60 have been told, either directly or indirectly, that sexual activity, including masturbation, becomes less important, less healthy, or even risky as you age. But the truth is quite different. Your body doesn't lose its need for sexual expression just because you've reached a milestone birthday. In fact, maintaining a healthy relationship with your own sexuality can support circulation, hormone balance, mood stability, and even prostate health. Think of it this way. Just as your muscles benefit from gentle movement and your mind benefits from staying curious, your sexual health benefits from continued, comfortable engagement at whatever pace feels natural to you. If you're someone who has always been comfortable with self-intimacy, continuing that in a relaxed, pressure-free way can be quietly supportive of your overall wellness. If this has never been part of your routine, there's no pressure to change that. What matters is understanding that it's not harmful, not shameful, and not something that needs to stop simply because of age. Even acknowledging this to yourself, without judgment, can bring a sense of relief. But the next point is where many men feel the most confusion. This is where the myths get loud. Many men worry about frequency. Am I doing this too much? Too little? Is there a right amount? Here's the reassuring truth. There is no universal rule. Your body knows what feels balanced. For some men, that might mean once a week. For others, a few times a month. For some, more often. For others, less. What matters isn't the number. It's whether it feels natural, comfortable, and free from pressure or guilt. Imagine if someone told you there's a correct number of times to laugh each week, or a perfect amount of time to spend reading. It wouldn't make sense, would it? The same applies here. Your rhythm is your own. If you find yourself worrying about whether you're doing it right, take a breath and ask yourself, does this feel comfortable? Does it bring a sense of release or relaxation? If the answer is yes, you're fine. If it ever feels forced, uncomfortable, or tied to anxiety, that's worth noticing, not as a failure, but as information about what your body needs. But what about the physical side? What's actually happening inside the body? Almost no one explains this part clearly. When you engage in sexual activity, including masturbation, your body responds in several quiet, supportive ways. Blood flow increases. Hormones like testosterone and endorphins get a gentle boost. Tension releases. Sleep often improves afterward. For men over 60, this matters more than many realize. Healthy circulation supports heart health, brain function, and energy. Hormone balance affects mood, motivation, and muscle tone. Stress relief supports everything from digestion to immune response. In other words, this isn't just about pleasure. It's about the body functioning well as a whole. Think of it like stretching in the morning. You're not just loosening one muscle. You're supporting your entire system. If you're physically able and comfortable, continuing this natural rhythm can be a simple form of self-care. If physical changes have made things more difficult, maybe due to medications, health conditions, or just the natural shifts of aging, that's okay too. What matters is staying connected to your own sense of well-being, however that looks for you. Even just understanding that this is healthy can ease worry. But there's something else many men don't realize, and it has to do with prostate health. This matters more after 60 than before. You've probably heard about prostate health. It becomes a bigger focus as men age, and rightly so. What's less commonly discussed is this. Regular ejaculation, whether through partnered sex or masturbation, may support prostate health over time. Some studies suggest that more frequent ejaculation is associated with a lower risk of prostate issues. The exact reasons aren't fully understood, but it's thought that regular release helps clear the prostate gland and reduce inflammation. Now, this isn't a guarantee, and it's not medical advice. But it is a reassuring piece of information that many men never hear. If you're already comfortable with regular self-intimacy, this is simply one more reason not to worry about it. If you're not, there's no need to force anything. The key is understanding that this natural function isn't something to avoid out of fear or shame. Most people actually do the opposite of what's coming next. Here's where guilt often creeps in. Many men over 60 carry quiet guilt about masturbation, even if they've done it for decades. This guilt often comes from outdated beliefs, religious upbringing, or simply the sense that older men shouldn't need this. But here's the truth. Your body doesn't suddenly become undeserving of pleasure, release, or comfort just because you've aged. Sexual expression is a normal, healthy part of being human at any age. Carrying guilt about something so natural can actually create more stress than the act itself ever could. If you notice guilt rising, pause and ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it based on facts or on old messages that no longer serve me? You don't have to force yourself to feel differently, but simply recognizing that the guilt isn't based on truth can begin to loosen its grip. If it helps, remind yourself, my body is still mine. My well-being still matters. But the next one often surprises people. If this video has already helped you see this topic a little more clearly, or feel a little less alone in wondering about it, tapping the like button really helps YouTube share this with other men who might benefit too. No pressure. Just know that it makes a difference. This affects seniors even more. Many men assume that if they're in a relationship, masturbation becomes unnecessary or even disrespectful to their partner. But the two aren't in competition. Masturbation and partnered intimacy serve different purposes. One doesn't replace the other. Sometimes, you might want the closeness and connection of a partner. Other times, you might simply want the private, pressure-free release that comes from self-intimacy. Both are normal. Both are healthy. And for men whose partners may have different needs, physical limitations, or simply different rhythms, masturbation can be a way to honor your own needs without placing pressure on anyone else. If you're in a relationship and feel uncertain about this, consider having an open, gentle conversation with your partner. Most relationships benefit from honest communication about needs, comfort, and boundaries. If that feels too vulnerable right now, simply know this. Taking care of your own needs, in a private and respectful way, isn't a betrayal. It's part of being a whole person. What I'll share next is something many doctors don't mention until there's already a problem. Almost no one warns you about this ahead of time. Some medications, especially those for blood pressure, depression, or prostate issues, can affect sexual function. You might notice it takes longer to become aroused, or that climax feels less intense, or that desire feels dimmed. This is common, and it's not your fault. What's frustrating is that many men don't realize the connection. They assume it's just aging, or that something is wrong with them. But often, it's simply a side effect. And sometimes, adjustments can be made. If you've noticed changes after starting a new medication, it's worth mentioning to your doctor. Not in a panicked way. Just, I've noticed some changes in this area since starting this medication. Is that common? Are there alternatives? Many doctors appreciate the question and can offer solutions you didn't know existed. If you're not comfortable bringing it up, that's okay too. But know that it's a normal, legitimate concern, and you deserve answers. But there's still one important insight left, and it's often the most freeing of all. Here's the myth that keeps many men stuck in worry. If I'm still interested in sex, or still masturbating, at my age, something must be wrong with me. Let's gently correct that. Sexual desire doesn't have an expiration date. Some men remain interested and active well into their 80s and 90s. Others notice desire fading earlier. Both are normal. What's not normal is the cultural silence around it. Because we don't talk about it, men assume they're alone in still feeling desire. They assume that continuing to masturbate means they're somehow immature, inappropriate, or broken. But the research tells a different story. Studies show that many men over 60, and even over 70, continue to engage in sexual activity, including masturbation, and report that it contributes positively to their quality of life. Why doesn't anyone say this out loud? Because we're uncomfortable. Because sexuality in older adults is often treated as either invisible or inappropriate. But ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just makes men feel ashamed of something completely natural. So here's the reassuring truth, tied back to where we started. If you're over 60 and still interested in your own sexual health, you're not broken. You're not immature. You're not alone. You're simply human. And honoring that part of yourself, privately, comfortably, and without guilt, is one way of continuing to care for your whole well-being. So far, we've covered why this matters, what's actually happening in the body, and how to release the guilt that often surrounds this topic. But there's still one final insight left, and for many men, it's the most surprising of all. Here's what many men only learn after a health scare, but you don't have to wait for that. Your sexual health is connected to your overall health. Changes in desire, function, or comfort can sometimes be early signals of other things going on in the body, like circulation issues, hormone imbalances, or stress levels. That doesn't mean every change is a warning sign, but it does mean that paying attention to this area of your health can actually help you notice patterns that matter. For example, if you suddenly lose interest in something that used to feel natural, it might be worth checking in with your doctor. Not because there's something wrong, but because your body might be telling you something about energy, mood, or physical health. If you notice discomfort, pain, or difficulty that's new, that's also worth mentioning. Not with shame, just as information. Your sexual health isn't separate from the rest of you. It's woven into your circulation, your hormones, your nervous system, your mood. Taking it seriously, with curiosity, not fear, is one more way of taking care of yourself as a whole person. And here's the empowering part. You don't need anyone's permission to care about this. You don't need to justify it, explain it, or apologize for it. Your well-being matters. All of it. No matter your age, your body is still capable of comfort, release, and connection, whether with a partner or with yourself. Progress doesn't come from doing everything perfectly. It comes from treating yourself with kindness, listening to your own rhythms, and letting go of shame that was never yours to carry. Be gentle with yourself. Take things one step at a time. And remember, you deserve to feel whole, comfortable, and at peace with every part of who you are. If you appreciate honest, respectful conversations about senior health, especially topics that don't get talked about enough, feel free to subscribe. I share new videos like this regularly, and I'd be honored to have you here. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments which part of today's video stood out to you most. I read every comment, and I'm always grateful to hear from you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.